The following program was produced by an independent community producer. The opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of the ECAT staff or board of directors.
Come to you from underneath a peach blossom. It's time for an episode of BeAuSm. Find positivity throughout your life and work. Just like our mascot rooster, Steve the Jerk.
Here we go with another episode of the BeAuSm Podcast. I'm your host, Joshua Peach, and Mark is not with me. I'm actually recording 4 or 5 episodes here today, all back to back to back to back. Mark is getting ready for a big speaking opportunity he has tomorrow, and I told him, rest that voice. Speaking for 5 hours, you can hear I'm on hour number 3, and I'm already starting to lose a little bit of the vocal noise, but last episode we did with Dan Morris, of course, Morris Insurance, people we love a lot, and it was talking about my local town of Easton, and now I am going to go about as far west in the country as I could from where I am, all the way to wonderful Dillingham, Alaska, and my friend Phil Hulett, who I have had the opportunity and the good fortune to spend personal time with on a couple of occasions, and every time I sit with him, I'm like, this guy can't just get any better of a human than he already is with me. And he drops these things that he does that are just amazing. And so the first thing I want to do is welcome you, Phil. Is this your first podcast?
It is, yes.
Oh, this is great. Now we're going to cue him up for the first podcast person type of stuff that we do, the funny noises and the music and all that stuff. So be ready for a whole bunch of whammies, but no, welcome. Thank you for giving us some time. So first of all, I want to get into you, but I'm fascinated with Dillingham myself, and I don't believe a lot of people know where Dillingham is. How do you get there? What goes on, and all the good that you guys have happening. So
yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm glad to be here too. Looking forward to this. Dillingham is in the western part of Alaska. We're 350 miles west of Anchorage. So everything pretty much, you come into Alaska, you land in Anchorage, and then you kind of disperse from there. So to get to us, we actually have commercial flights that come in every day. In the wintertime, we get 1 flight a day sometimes. In the summertime, we get 2. But there's no roads that connect us anywhere. And so we're considered part of the bush of Alaska. Dillingham's a beautiful place. It's actually the world's largest natural salmon fishery. About 85% of the world's consumed natural caught salmon is caught in Bristol Bay in about 6 weeks every summer. So it's huge. We go from about 2,500 people to about 6,000 people for those 6 weeks. We just explode with all the fishermen and people coming in just for fishing. So that's pretty much our industry here.
yeah, and are a lot of those people locals that are getting their yearly catch, or is it commercial fishermen, and was it a little bit of everything?
It's mostly commercial fishermen that come in to fish for their season and everything and catch it. We get a lot of people from different countries that come in and work in the canneries, a lot from Guatemala and the Mexico and stuff like that. And then we also get a lot of Russian fishermen that come over and have permits here. So we get all kinds of people that show up in town.
Is there are they fishing? This is stupid questions, but I learned stuff in Alaska. So, are they fishing for the salmon in rivers, or is it in the bay only? Is there dip netting where you are? Because that's
Not as a commercial aspect. Some people do it for subsistence or just recreational.
yeah.
My daughter did it this year for the first time, and the water's like 50 degrees, so you wade out in it, and it's pretty cold. But at the same time, you just kind of hold the net there, and whenever a fish swims into it, you're like, "Whoa, I got one!"
Yeah.
And
Well,
so,
my understanding is only Alaskan residents can dip net. I could be wrong, but maybe that was just because people want to keep me from trying it. But for those that don't know about dip netting, is you essentially, like you said, you just you put a net in the water, and there's so many, the fish are so abundant that they literally swim into the net. You take them out, and there you go. And you have as a resident, you can catch so many fish for your family, and then, for additional family members, you can catch more. But you're essentially, you're eating fresh fish year round, that you catch up
Yeah.
there, which is pretty cool.
We subsistence fish here. We put out a set net. It's a 10 fathom, which there's about a little over 3 feet in a fathom. So it's 10 fathoms long. We stake it on a beach, and as the tide comes in, the fish swim into the net. When the tide goes out, we go pick them out of the net.
That's
This
amazing.
year in 3 tides, I caught about 200 salmon. So we filled our freezers, and I took some down to Illinois and Fairbanks and stuff to
Yep.
some other friends and people around.
Yeah, no, when I was in Kenai, which is a big fishing, Kenai River is renowned for salmon fishing. I went to the grocery store, and their seafood section was non-existent, right? Because it's like, why are you going to go to the grocery store to get good seafood when you got it all right outside the door?
Exactly.
So, Illinois. So you weren't born and bred in Dillingham. I think you told me you were born in Illinois. How did you get to Dillingham? Like, did you spin the globe when you were a kid and put your finger and go, I'm gonna end up in Dillingham someday?
God has amazing ways to put people where they want them. And when I was a kid, my dad and I used to like John Wayne a lot. And one of our favorite movies was actually North to Alaska, which I always thought was just funny. But now I look back on it, and maybe a seed was planted at a young age. I don't know. But no, my story is kind of, I didn't grow up in church. Didn't grow up around the things of God, about the Bible and stuff like that. My dad had kind of gotten bitter towards God, and so I didn't grow up towards that. But my dad was a very moral person, had good basic standards and stuff like that. But I got around the wrong group of kids in school, and my senior year I was out partying with them in a cornfield in the middle of Illinois, and the police showed up, and that was kind of a big turning point in my life. I had a little too much to drink, and the police actually said, the landowner said that he wouldn't press any charges if your parents came and got you. And I was like, no, let's go a different route. I had a healthy fear of my father. And my dad got in the truck, he picked me up, and I remember driving away, and I looked over at him, and I thought he was going to be like furious and mad and all that kind of stuff. And he just looked at me and he said, well, you made a mistake. What are you going to learn from it? And all he had was one tear rolling down his cheek. And I could tell at that time, I was 17, and I got to thinking about it and kind of took a retrospective of where my life was headed. And I realized, this isn't a really good path I'm on. And so at that time, my dad had actually started going back to church and had been asking me to go with him and stuff. And that Sunday morning, I got up and got dressed with my AC/DC shirt on and my chain wallets and my baggy pants, and was in the morning, and got up and went downstairs, and Dad said, well, what are you doing up so early? I said, well, I thought I'd go to church with you. And just started, and God kind of changed my life around, changed my desires, changed my want tos. And I had actually had, it was kind of crazy. I had a scholarship with Caterpillar Tractor Company for industrial maintenance. And I was 2 years into their program. I had one more year, and then I'd be an apprentice in the factories and that. And I felt God calling me in a different direction. And so I told my dad, I said, Dad, I think God wants me in the ministry, serving him. And my dad thought I was just trying to change careers and goals and that kind of stuff, how college students do. And he said, well, why don't you finish it? And I said, well, there was a time when God tells you to do something, you should really just jump on and do it. I mean, there's all kinds of examples in the Bible where when people didn't obey, that they didn't that it ended up even worse than it should have. You think of Noah, you think of all kinds of people. I mean, I don't really want to get ate by a fish in the middle of Illinois. That wouldn't be good. So I ended up actually going down to Tennessee and went to Bible college down there, graduated in 4 years, debt free, worked my way through it. I was in the dorm for 1 year. And then I said, dorm life is not for me. I couldn't stand being in the dorm with about 28 other guys. And so I got married, and then brought my wife to Tennessee. And we both I went through college down there. After college, went back to Illinois and was the youth pastor and Sunday school director for our church. And for about 7 years was there, just kind of waiting to see where God wanted me. And at one time, uh, I was praying about a whole bunch of different places, different locations all over the world, and just didn't have a lot of peace about it. And then one day somebody said, well, why don't you pray about Alaska? And that's when all those reality shows had started on TV, and
Mhm.
you just saw Alaska everywhere. And I was like, well, I'll pray for it. So the more I started praying for it, the more it was on my heart, and the more it just kind of grew and grew and grew. And I said to my wife, I said, Emily, I said, we need to pray about this and be serious. And if it's not where God wants us to go, he needs to take it off and change our directions, because it was so overwhelming and so much of a focus. And I don't necessarily believe in signs and wonders, but I think God can use certain things and situations. And so we were praying about it, and we ordered a new bed, a new mattress, and the delivery truck for the bed actually had broke down, and they rented a U-Haul, and the U-Haul pulled up in front of our house. And you know how the U-Haul has those states on the sides
Oh,
of them?
yeah. Yeah.
So this big 28-foot U-Haul pulls up in front of our house, and it says, welcome to Alaska. And it was the Alaska U-Haul truck.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, what do we do now? So so we started planning, and we did a trip up to Alaska, and kind of drove around the state, went to a bunch of different places that we could drive to, went to a couple remote places that we only could fly to, and God just really secured it.
Mhm.
So 10 years ago in June, we moved to Dillingham, Alaska, and we've been here ever since, just trying to plug away and see what opportunities God will allow us to walk through, and what doors God will open for us. We've focused on mostly the villages outside of Dillingham, but some things have changed this year, and we're actually focusing here on Dillingham now. We're buying a building here in town and starting a church in that, and that's what really brought us to Alaska.
Mhm.
So
Well, good. And what is your day job?
um
Because you just gave me a
I
bunch of
work.
stuff that you do, but you also have a day job.
Yeah, well, I was asked one time what I work for for 8 years. I've worked for Dillingham City School District. I started here as the accounts payable person and payroll, and then a year and a half later, I became the business manager for the district, managing all of our general fund budget, and then all the accounting and everything that goes along with that. I was interviewed by ALASBO one time, the Alaska School Business Officials. They asked, why did you get into school business? And my response was, well, the local purveyors of services here in Dillingham require payment for their services.
Mhm.
Essentially, I needed a job, and
Yeah.
it worked out. Um, so this year I actually switched school districts. I'm working remotely for a larger school district, Galena City School District. Still doing basically the same thing, only there's a whole lot more moving pieces. Um, and then along with that, I'm also the chaplain for the Alaska State Troopers in our area. Um, that's not a paid position, but that's another job I do.
Mhm.
So
And what I've been able to see from a distance, and one of the things that I talk about is, um, belief. Everybody has to have a belief in something. So if it's not God, it's something that you believe in. I believe that there are things that happen in our life that are whether we wish them to happen and we make them happen, or whether we believe them to happen, or whether we pray for them to happen, or whatever. I think that there's definitely a path for us to go down. But what I found with the paths that you go down, and we're going to get into a couple others that we haven't touched on yet, you do them all well. Like, you give everything that you have. When I see you sitting with your peers from all over Alaska, we were just up in Fairbanks a couple of weeks ago, it's 50, 60 of your peers that you all have different situations. Some are in better situations than others financially. Some have easier accessibility, harder accessibility, staffing issues, what have you. What I always notice is that, when you speak about something, everybody tends to listen. Like, it's obvious that you do, a lot of homework. It's obvious that you pay attention to everything that's going on in Juneau from the state level, that being the capital. I don't know how you find the time to do one of these jobs, let alone all of these jobs. Is it just a dedication and a passion and a commitment? Your why is obviously your religion is very, very strong with that, your family, I'm sure, but what is it that pushes you to just have such a level of excellence in everything that you do?
I think the best definition I can have for that is just the character that my dad instilled in me and the work ethics that I saw him growing up. I refer to him as my dad, but actually he was my grandfather. He adopted me when I was 1. Um, he's my mother's father, actually. So he's my grandfather on my mom's side, biological mom. She had me at a very young age and just couldn't take care of me and decided that she was going to put me up for adoption. And I was his first grandchild, and he said, "No, you're not. I'll take him." And then I just saw his work ethic and the things that he went through. His story of his life. I mean, he grew up in a very, very poor home, and at 12 years old, he left home and never returned. He worked at a dairy farm for room and board when he was 12, helping take care of the cows, and then he moved up and eventually got a job in an auto body shop, working on cars because it was a job available.
Mhm.
And then he got started at Caterpillar, and he was shoveling coal into furnaces, um, and then moved up from there. And eventually, he got into skilled trades and was what do they call him? Machine repair.
Mhm.
Um, for He ended up retiring with like 43 years of service at Caterpillar, and just worked his way up. He didn't have beyond an 8th grade education, but with tenacity and just focus, he had character. And I kind of associate my drive and everything that I have to living out his legacy as well.
Mhm.
And just having character in the things I do and taking pride in everything I do. And just trying to do it the best that I can, to either help out others or to just do the right thing.
Mhm. And you said living out his legacy. So has he passed?
Yeah, he passed away in 2012, um, on my son's 3rd birthday. So that was a rough birthday, but um, yeah.
Hmm. Wow. Well, you're making him proud.
Mm.
I didn't know that about. I didn't. Again, every time I talk to you, I'm learning something new, and you just drop these bombs on me that I just go, wow, okay, now it's all coming together. Well, let's jump to dinner in Anchorage. So we had dinner in Anchorage last December, and I had probably a 15-hour day of flying and everything, and then it was freezing last November, December. Anchorage got like 70% of their snowfall in like 2 weeks. So it was one of the few times in the first week in December that it was literally just an Arctic tundra that I've been up there for the last 10, 12 years, every year, first or second week in December. And it was cold, it was icy, there was snow, and I'm walking with tennis shoes trying to find the restaurant for dinner that I was late to. And I get in, I sit down, and we have a conversation. And maybe I talked about, maybe we had talked about my Guinness attempt at paddling a giant pumpkin. And I don't know that you were doing a Guinness attempt, but you shared with me, it's now become a Guinness attempt, but you shared with me something that you started to do, that I never would have thought to do in all of my life for your community. So talk a little bit about how that happened and what's going on and how it's becoming a Guinness World Record attempt.
Sure. Yeah, so COVID happened and it kind of destroyed the ministry that we had started here in Alaska. You know, we were traveling to villages, and when COVID happened, the villages here in Alaska actually looked at it as a second wave of the Spanish plague, the Spanish flu that like just decimated our area. So all the villages closed down completely. They were isolated. They didn't allow anybody in or out. And so we're sitting here and we're going, what do we do? Like, we're looking around and we're just staring at each other from 6 feet away, and we're going, what do we got to do something? So October came around, and I was trying to figure out something to do here in Dillingham that would get people outside and give them something to do, because we're all isolated. We're all stuck in our houses and distancing from everyone, and no activities were going on or anything like that. And I was like, okay, what do we have around that's um relatively inexpensive, and yet we could take it and do something fun with it? And my wife actually came up with the idea. She said, if we were in Illinois right now, we'd have corn mazes going on. And I was like, well, yeah, that would be, we can't grow corn that quick up here, especially in October. I said, but what do we have around here? And we looked around, we drove around town, and we came across pallets. Everything gets shipped here. And so we have an exuberant amount of pallets that just kind of sit around a lot of times. And so I was like, well, what if we make a maze out of pallets? And so that first year, we had 100, and I think it was 107 pallets that we took up, and I draw out a maze on graph paper, and we screw them all together, and we had a community event. We had hot dogs and hot chocolate and the maze and like a goodie bag for the kids and stuff like that. And we said, hey, we'll let 5 people go through at a time. We'll have it open for a week and that kind of stuff. So that way you can still social distance, but it's something fun to go do. And that first year we had a ton of people that showed up in waves, so that they were able to keep all the, things that they had to keep, distance and all that kind of stuff. And then every year, we've continued that, and it's grown about 100 pallets every year. This last year was our 5th year in it, and we had 513 pallets. We had over about 260 people actually show up, that I actually kept track of. The rest of the time I was like, I got busy talking to people, and you know how that goes. And but we probably had, estimate with all the food and everything that was passed out, we probably had between 500 and 600 actual people come through the maze within about a 3-day time period.
Well, and your total opportunity of people is what, 2,000?
Yes, yeah.
I mean, you're not having people from other places. I mean, people aren't flying in to, I mean,
Not just to come to the
not
maze.
yet. I mean, that it's going to when you hit this Guinness Book of World Records attempt.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. But yeah, so it just kind of started as a way to reach the community during a hardship and a time when people needed something to look forward to, and something to do. And it's just kind of grown from there. We now are known as the Pallet House,
Yep.
the Pallet Maze House. It's all done in my front yard. And then after the maze is done, I take it all apart and stack all the pallets back up, and it makes a nice wall in my front yard to keep
Yeah, I was gonna say, I
the
think
road
we
dust.
talked about that. I was like, you have a privacy fence
Yeah.
for 11 months out of the year.
Yeah.
And how long does it take you to put it together?
I can usually get it up in about 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
And then it takes about a day and a half to get it back. It always tears down faster than it goes up.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Hey, and do you have help doing it, or do you try to keep it a secret so people don't know the layout? You don't want the secret to get out.
It's usually just me and my kids and my wife. Our family does it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you've now applied for a Guinness attempt.
Yes, I did.
Has somebody else done this and submitted it, or
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, there's no category for it yet. So
you're a
my attempt is,
trailblazer of the pallet maze? I love
there
it.
you go.
Yeah.
My attempt is the largest pallet maze and the most pallets in a maze.
Mhm.
So
Where did the pallets go before? This is again stupid questions, but I mean, I think 99.9% of our listeners, viewers, are still trying to wrap their head around only being able to get access to their, like, if I could only get access to my community via plane, like most people don't think that that's real, right? So do they normally pick up the pallets when they're dropping off more pallets of things? Is it?
not usually. There's usually not a backhaul of pallets. It's usually they just kind of stay around. People use them for different projects, different. There's all kinds of little sheds and buildings that are built out of pallets.
Yeah.
And then a lot of people will also burn them for heat or just fires in the wintertime and stuff like that.
Yeah, I was gonna say they probably have like pallet bonfires on the beach. Um, so when are you putting this together and putting it to work?
We usually start it the 1st of October,
Mhm.
and then or mid-October. It just kind of depends on the weather. Some years I try to do it a little bit early because it looks like weather's coming in sooner.
Mhm.
We've had as much as a foot of snow on the ground when the maze was up before. That makes it a little bit more difficult to tear down
Yeah.
because they're froze to the ground. But yeah, it's usually around mid-October whenever it's up and going. Try to do something kind of usually leave it up through like Halloween, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, let's talk about the weather a little bit, because a lot of people don't understand. A lot of people think that Alaska is just an Arctic tundra year round. And I've had more conversations, when I come back from a trip up there, and they'll say, well, it must have been cold. And I'm like, no, it was sunny for 22 hours and 85 degrees, right? So, I mean, that was Fairbanks was, 70s, low 80s, 22 plus hours of sunlight. How many hours of sunlight do you have on your longest day?
I think our longest, well, it's kind of hard to say because it never really gets dark. It gets dusk, like a sunset, kind of the sun's beyond the horizon, but it still never really gets
Actually
dark.
dark. Yeah.
Yeah. So that longest day of the summer, it's still pretty bright all day long. I mean, we're probably right around that 22 to 23 hours technically of sunlight.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it takes a little while to get used to that.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't know how you do it. The dark is, I thought I would have a harder time with the dark part. But I actually have a hard time with the light part, because if
mhm.
you don't have blackout shades, you're confused. Like,
Yeah, with me, when I guess because of being here so long, when it's daylight, when the sun's up, it feels like you should be doing something to prepare for when there's no sunlight.
right.
So I'll get busy doing projects and doing things outside and running around, doing this, doing that. And then
Yep.
I'll be like, man, why am I so tired? And I look at my watch and it's 3 o'clock in the morning, it's like, oh, well, that's why. And
Yep.
so, and then the darkness, I mean, you just want to sleep.
Yeah. That's kind of the interesting thing about Alaskans, the people that live in Alaska, is like the resourcefulness and the preparation that you put in, because when winter hits, it's like to do stuff outside in many cases. Like, there's times that it's warm out, there's times that it's not as bad as people would think, but for the most part, it's pretty freaking cold.
Yeah.
And the weather can get you. And in
Yeah.
2018, I was in Anchorage. I was in Fairbanks when the earthquake hit. Was it almost 9? Wasn't it a 9 or
Hmm.
close to a 9? And it was the epicenter was a mile away from Anchorage.
Hmm.
I was in Fairbanks and I flew to Anchorage the next day, and it was still aftershocks in the 7s. And what's amazing with people in Alaska is, like, you guys don't even, like, you barely flinch. Like I'm sitting here going, what is going on? Why is this building moving? Why is the floor shaking? And you guys just like, oh, it's an earthquake. Go on the earthquake website and see where it hit and how big it was. And it's amazing the engineering in Anchorage anyway. I don't know if it's like this in the rest of Alaska, but essentially there's an earthquake that hits Alaska every day someplace, right? Or pretty close to it. And I've been I was in Wasilla once when the couch in the room that we were in actually just shifted in the ballroom. It like shifted and moved. And the guy that was sitting, I can't remember who it was, but he was sitting on the couch with me. And I'm like, are you doing that? He's like, no, it's an earthquake. And he was just like all calm, cool, and collected. I'm like, this couch just moved like a foot by itself because the earth was moving. And you're just like, yeah, it's just an earthquake. Yeah. Like the resiliency and just the ability to stay calm. And then just like the things that like the gold panning. We went, you and I we went panning for gold a couple weeks ago. And I had no idea about dredging for gold and how all that stuff went. That was serious business. Like that looked like about the hardest work I could imagine someone doing, right? Figuring out how to get 9,000 gallons of water to an area, manual shoveling labor wise, and being able to build this huge piece of equipment that was essentially going to dig into the earth on one end and fill the earth on the other end and continuously do that for gold. And it happened to be right next to the Alyeska oil pipeline, which is 870 miles of pipeline that was created in the 1970s. That the engineering is extraordinary. But you just sit there and you go, how do they do that with such a small window of time that they can actually effectively work outside the elements? It's
amazing. And whenever you get even more into the bush of Alaska and you get around certain people and different people that have been here for years and decades, and that they the things that they've experienced and the things that they've done just to survive is amazing. The resilience of Alaskans is it's inspiring. It's awe-inspiring as to, well, why why would you do that? But it's all about survival and continuing on the things that they have learned in the past and just making things work as needed.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the BeAuSm Podcast. If you are enjoying our episodes, please give us a 5-star rating review on your favorite podcast platform, whether it's Spotify, Podbean, Apple Podcasts. Those ratings and reviews do make a difference in helping us get more exposure, more listeners, as well as giving people an insight and understanding as to what they could expect when they listen to our episodes. Thanks again, and you are awesome. I never asked you this, and you kind of touched on it. What was it like to be in a non-accessible village during COVID? Like, did people have COVID in the village? Have people had COVID? Are you still like one of the places that's like the unicorns of no COVID?
No, we had COVID. I actually got it twice during the whole thing. One time really bad, the other one not as bad. But it was the thing I got here. The thing about this area in the villages, as I kind of touched on it a little bit ago, is they looked at it as the second wave of the Spanish flu. Dillingham itself, when the Spanish flu came through, it wiped out about 90% of the population.
Wow.
There was an orphanage was created here in Dillingham just to take care of all the kids that all their parents and relatives died.
Wow.
And so those kids, when it came through, are now the grandkids of the orphans, and they grew up hearing those stories of how it went through and how it wiped out so many people, and the amount of fear that instilled in the people here, it was astronomical about how just they didn't know what to do or where to go or where to turn. And it was amazing the amount of fear that was amongst it just in people. And they're actually just now starting to overcome a lot of that fear. Last year with fishing season, there were still villages that were closed to anybody that didn't live there. because they didn't want them to bring in anything again.
Mm-hmm.
So
what's the percentage of natives that have been there since the beginning of time? It's very high, I'm assuming, right?
yeah, it's extremely high. I would say 80 to 90% here in Dillingham is mostly Alaskan natives.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And so how, so COVID just got there when things were dropped off, someone got sick, and then just did most of the 2,000 people all get COVID? I mean, how did that? Because I mean, here it's very easy to. I mean, everybody went to Florida like that, right?
Yeah,
That's
I
like
mean,
it started. I believe it started in Boston, if I remember correctly. The spread started in Boston at a convention, I think at the Marriott or Long Wharf or someplace like that. That somebody came from China. That's the story is it went and then it spread and then the whole blame was that it was near spring break and everybody went to Florida, so it was easy for us to. But if you guys were basically isolating yourselves from the world, how does it get there and how did it spread?
yeah, I mean, goods and services still come out and did certain things. I mean, we still
Mhm.
had to survive, and so we were still getting planes every day from Anchorage. There was still some contact that way. Travel, especially people going in and out, was
Still
not
allowed.
as much. There wasn't as many people, but there was still travel.
Yeah.
We have a very itinerant community, so a lot of medical staff goes in and out. They're here for 3 weeks, and then they leave for some. There's also a lot of people that work up on the North Slope on the pipeline
Hmm.
that they work up there for 6 weeks and then they come back. And so there was still a lot of travel going on, and I think that's how it mostly got spread and brought into town.
Okay. And when so you said they come in for the medical, like do you have a hospital in Dillingham? Is it
We do.
okay?
Yeah.
So do they do surgeries and everything else, or do people have to fly out for?
No, they so our hospital here is pretty much just like an urgent care center. As you guys would classify it. They don't do any surgeries or they'll do like minor sutures and stuff like that and
Mhm.
splints. But they don't do a lot of the major medical stuff. Um, I don't know what level of hospital it's considered, but
So you have to
um
fly out. I mean, do they have? So you have to be on the one or two flights out in the day to get back, or a
yeah.
special med flight.
Or you can, yeah, there's a special medical flight you can get if it's an emergency situation.
Hmm.
It's kind of like our air ambulance kind of services.
Hmm.
um Astronomically expensive, but you can get everybody here pretty much has like an insurance policy with the company,
Yep,
so it
that
takes
covers it.
down that cost drastically.
So I'm listening to this, and I'm like, one side of me is sitting here going, "Man, the isolation opportunity would potentially scare me." Like if you're in like all of a sudden you don't hear that plane for 4 or 5 days. You got to start to feel isolated, and for
Mhm.
me, I'm sitting here, I'm getting anxiety thinking about it. On the other hand, I'm like, that might not be so bad. If I could get along with the majority of the 2,000 people and, go to your pallet maze and hang out and have hot dogs, maybe that's
Yeah.
maybe that's not a bad way to maybe that's not a bad way to live. Um, what's it like? Do you have a police department? Like, do you have is it just like any town USA? It's just that it's 350 miles away from the closest contiguous roadway system.
Pretty much. If you take a small town in, I grew up in central Illinois, a small town of about 2,500 people,
Hmm.
and we had a little grocery store, we had a gas station, we had about 6 churches, um, we had 3 bars and 2 liquor stores. That's basically Dillingham.
Yeah.
You just take away any roads that connected anywhere,
Hmm.
and that's exactly the same exact town that I lived in growing up, and that's what Dillingham is. It's just you don't have the accessibility of just getting in a car and driving for 3 hours.
Yeah.
We have roads here. We have roads around town.
Hmm.
You can drive for about 20 minutes. That's if you keep going in circles.
Yeah.
But that's about it. But it's very similar. We have police department. We're considered a class 1 city. So we have police department, we have a garbage service, we have all the normal amenities. It's just, whenever you go into a grocery store, you might see 30 types of bread. We have 3.
Mhm.
We have accessibility a little bit, but those 3 types of bread also, milk right now runs about $16 a gallon. So our
16?
accessibility, yeah, 16, 1 6.
Yeah.
And so, our accessibility is limited and our prices are higher.
Mhm.
But you still have the ability to get it. You just have to compensate for it.
Yeah. No Amazon Prime.
We do have Amazon Prime. It just takes about 6 weeks to get here.
Oh,
So
next day service. It's not happening.
yeah.
Yeah. I went to order something last night at 10 o'clock and it was going to show up at 4 a.m. I had to put the delay on it, like 6 weeks.
Yeah, most of the time it's 6 weeks.
So, like buying clothes, you order that all online and shipped in. Is there, is there department stores like other? There's not, obviously not a mall, but I mean, like, I'm just sitting here going, like, what else?
Yeah,
Like,
no.
like you just can't, like, I'm just sitting here saying, wow, I need a shirt. I go to my Target that's 2 miles away from me. You don't have.
So there's the grocery store here has like 4 clothing racks in it.
Yeah.
Where you can get some like Dillingham t-shirts or some different things like that. But here it's very limited. I'm a bigger guy. They don't have my sizes here, so everything I get is ordered in.
Yeah.
Or when we fly into Anchorage for a medical appointment or a conference or something like that,
You're stocking up.
yeah, we stock up. So as Alaskan residents with Alaska Airlines, they allow us to have 3 checked bags per person per ticket. And so we can, I can load up 50 pounds, 150 pounds
Yep.
of goods and bring it back with us. If my whole family flies in, I'm allowed 18 checked bags.
Yeah.
So 18 times 50, I mean, we stock up.
Yeah. Well, that's if anybody that hasn't been to Alaska, the airports in Alaska are hysterical for that because you see everything flying down the conveyor belt. You see Rubbermaid taped all over the place, containers, Yeti coolers, stocked with, fish or whatever they're stocking up on when they're on the mainland. I mean, there's just boxes upon boxes upon packages. The one thing that I wish every airport would do that Alaska does, and it is so simple, and this goes back to the basic fundamentals of if somebody doesn't know something, they don't know whether they should do it or not do it. Every Alaskan airport, you've probably noticed this, has a yellow, black, and white stand back line at the baggage claim. It's 2 to 3 feet away from the baggage claim. And that simple line, that simple tape line keeps people from standing in front of the baggage claim, waiting for their bag, which is always going to be the last one, it's an unbelievable, courteous and great experience when you have everyone standing behind the line. They see their bag, they step in front of the line, grab their bag, and then take off. There's no bumping and moving in and out of everybody, which is really cool. But yeah, you see people like that's where the suitcase carts come in handiest is in Alaska because you just see people that just have boxes upon boxes upon boxes of stuff, which is, like
Definitely.
you gotta stock up. So you literally go on your shopping sprees by when you have a medical appointment in Anchorage or something. Every trip you're again being resourceful. So it's impressive. Grocery store with 3 racks of clothes and Dillingham. I got to get a Dillingham t-shirt, I think.
Yeah.
I've talked to a couple people and I said Dillingham. They're like, where's that? It's in Alaska, of course. Don't you guys know? So, well, this is good stuff. All great. One of the things that was, just our conversations go in so many different directions when I get to see you, and it's never long enough, right? All my trips up there are like, I'm up there for 2 days and I turn around and I come home, but I try to make the most out of all of them. This year, you're standing on a break and all these people have balloon animals. So, uh, first of all, I look over and I'm like, why don't I have one? And then I see that you're the one that's making them. How do you get into making balloon animals?
Well, once again, it was a time of my wife and I, we were traveling around from church to church. We traveled in a fifth wheel with two kids, and then we had a third kid while we were in the fifth wheel.
In Illinois, Tennessee, Alaska, where were you?
We went all over we were in 17 states in 18 months.
Wow.
With a fifth wheel, everywhere from Montana to Louisiana to New Mexico to Wisconsin. We were everywhere.
Yeah.
Every Wednesday and Sunday, I was in a different church presenting, and talking with people and that kind of stuff. And we did it all by faith. We didn't have any money in the bank account. Whatever the church gave us, that's how we traveled. And we were sitting in a campground one time and didn't have any money, didn't have anything to go do. And somebody gave me, I think, some balloons and a hand balloon pump. And so I got on YouTube and started looking it up, and I was like, this will be pretty cool to go to a village and just start making balloon animals for the kids. And so I just started learning. I'm YouTube taught on how to make balloon animals. And now whenever I go to a village, we go to a village, go to the store, and I'll just start pulling out balloon animals and pumping them up and making them, hand them to a kid. 5 minutes later, I got 20 kids around me. 10 minutes later, all the kids in town are around me. And then we do a little Bible club for the kids. It's an awesome time. It's a lot of fun.
Phil, we need more people like you. You are always smiling. You're always optimistic. You do things because of the right things in your, what you believe are the right things, and you do them with conviction. And just like you're just so nonchalant, you're like, yeah, I got some balloons. I got a pump. I went on YouTube, and now I make balloon animals, and all the kids like it. And that's like figuring out what people like and what makes people happy, and then doing it. That's a formula that a lot of people miss the boat on. Right. We get what we get in our own way, and we have challenges and everything. And you're, everything that you've done is that of a servant leader of wanting to make a difference, not just in your house, but in other houses. And that's something that's amazingly commendable. I'm so honored to have gotten to know you over the years, and to consider you a friend, first and foremost. I always look forward to, to seeing you. And I sent you a note. You sent me a picture with your daughter wearing the BeAuSm shirt. And I was like, man, I want to share with my listeners and viewers and BeAuSm Nation a little bit of Phil, because he's just such a fascinating human. And it's just, you listen and I go, man, I don't know that I could do that. I don't know that I could pack up everything in a fifth wheel and go for 18 months just on the hope that, people are going to help support the mission. That's their mission too, right? It's pretty impressive, and I appreciate you coming on and sharing some of your story with us. And my bucket list has Dillingham on it, so I gotta figure out a flight. I gotta figure out how to get out there. Ideally, I want to get out there for this maze. I don't know that I'll be able to make it this year, but I got to get out and check this all out for myself, because I've been to a lot of places in Alaska, but I've yet to be to a airline only accessible village, which I think would be a pretty cool experience.
Yeah, always available. Come on out. I'll make you feel at home.
Yeah, I know you will. But hey, listen, thanks for giving us some time today. It's 10 o'clock in the morning your time, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, the day's just getting started. I'll let you know. It's an amazing afternoon. That's what you're going to have coming your way in about 4 hours. You're going to have an amazing 2:00 hour, because that's what we're having here. So
awesome.
Appreciate you, my friend, and we'll have to have you on again after the maze and see how you made out with the setting the bar, which I'm sure you'll break your own bar next year and the year after, and doing some great things for the community.
Yeah, our goal this year is to try to get over 600 pallets. So I'm running out of space, so I'm going to try to go up. and we'll see how that goes.
Well, good luck, my friend. Appreciate you.
Thank you, sir.
That'll do it for another episode here. I think that the big message on this is do something. Don't just wait for something to happen. Do something if it seems like it's right, if it feels like it's right, even if it's something that has never been done before. Go for what's possible. I think Phil's a testament to whether it's his following of his faith and doing the things that he's done and traveling to the places he's gone, or his wife saying, hey, why don't we do, we would have done a corn maze and then building a maze out of pallets in Dillingham, Alaska, or learning to make balloon animals just because you need to pass the time. And now it's something that, you're able to share with kids and be able to continue to pass along and spread the most important thing, which is a smile and happiness, which Phil does a great job of. Just try to keep doing that. And this has been another great episode. We're going back to back to back to back. As always, Adam, thank you over there taking notes and keeping track of the scoreboard for me. We're going to have a pizza. We're having Villa Pizza for lunch between breaks. So I'm keeping up against that clock. But in the meantime, keep doing what you're doing, and you are awesome. Have a great day, everybody.
Coming to you from underneath a peach blossom. It's time for an episode of BeAuSm. Find positivity throughout your life and work. Just like our mascot rooster, Steve the Jerk.